This episode of White Coat Warriors is brought to you by Delta G Ketones. Whether you're on the front lines of healthcare or hitting the gym, Delta G Ketones provide you with the clean, sustained energy you need to perform at your best cognitively and physically. To experience the benefits of the exogenous ketones, visit deltagketones.com and use the code WCW20 at checkout for 20% off your order. That website again is Delta G Ketones, DeltaGketones.com. Now on with the show. The views expressed by myself and the guests of this podcast do not reflect the official policy or position of the U.S. Air Force, Department of Defense, or the U.S. government. Welcome to White Coat Warriors. I'm your host, Dr. Chris Myers. And on this podcast, we talk about human performance optimization and training paradigms for you, the young medical professionals, and how you can use it in your own professional practices to help yourselves and your clients. Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of White Coat Warriors. Today we've got another great episode for you. Today we're going to be talking with strength coach Kosta Telegadas, great friend of mine and colleague as well, who helped write chapter 10 of the Human Weapon System book that you see behind me and what this podcast is based on. So we're going to talk a little bit about resistance training, how it can be used with injury prevention and recovery, but also with you as young doctors, how you can use it yourself to help improve your performance. So welcome to the show, Kosta.
Yeah. Hey, Chris, thank you so much for having me. Really grateful to be here, man.
Yeah, appreciate it. Yeah, it's great to finally have you on. So I know you well. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do?
I've been a strength and conditioning coach since I was roughly 20 years old, starting the intern in that route. Currently working with the tactical populations all over the world right now. It's been fantastic, and love martial arts. Really big into Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I'm a writer. I've helped publish an ebook for strength coaches as well to help adapt certain methodologies and give them some framework for the tactical setting when they come in. And really just excited to be here with you today, man.
I appreciate it. Yeah. So let's talk about kind of your background in strength and conditioning. So I know you started really young in this. So what really got you motivated to get into coaching itself?
Yeah, so we got to go back to my high school days on that, man.
Uh-huh.
Basically, I was a basketball player. When I was born, I was a swimmer. Had loads of musculoskeletal injuries and issues, just riddled up and down. Nothing major, but acute pop-ups everywhere you can imagine, right? Low back, shoulder, ankle, you name it. So started back in freshman year of high school. I made the basketball team. I didn't think I was going to make it, and I wound up being seated on the depth chart at the lowest depth chart. I was the tallest guy on the team, weighed the most, and just could not be a physical body at all, right?
Yeah.
So from there, I wound up getting a pretty nasty low back injury that year. Probably hit something like sprained my paraspinalis or something like that in the low back, but it was just nasty. Even just getting up and sitting down were crippling. So in the offseason, the coaches kind of questioned whether I was going to go play on the JV team or not from the freshman to the JV level. So I wound up wanting to prove them wrong. And so I got in the weight room. We had a multi-million-dollar state-of-the-art facility at Douglas Freeman High School, and it was a public school. So it's not a super wealthy public school. It's not a super poor public school, but it's just right in the middle. Okay. And they brought in a strength coach from Arizona State University, Coach Rooney. So, hey, Coach Rooney, if you're listening to this, I love you, man. Definitely probably one of the most positive masculine figures I've ever had in my life. He was the first guy to challenge a lot of the beliefs that I had about myself and work with me with the basketball team in there. He'll tell you I went from coming in 2 days a week to 5 days a week. I couldn't get enough of it. And it showed. All the pain went away. My squat went from barely being able to squat the bar with proper form down to the box, all the way to being 300 that off season, over the course of a year and a half. Right. So yeah, it was fantastic. I fell in love with the weight room, saw the performance in basketball, and I went from being last on the depth chart to being first guy off the bench for the JV team that year. So I saw it first and foremost. From there, I went off to college because he got me to get my act together. I was probably closing in on being a C or D student in high school and wound up getting up to an A and B student because of what the discipline that was built from that. Wound up not knowing what I wanted to do in college, just thought back to what I liked and maybe, hey, this is my chance to pursue it. So I get into Longwood University. It's a small D1 school in Richmond, Virginia, right outside Richmond, Virginia in Farmville, And basically, I don't know, I'm sitting there and I'm thinking back and I was like, well, you know what? I want to go try to be a strength coach. Like let's just
Okay.
try it. I've tried the
Yeah.
physical therapy, going to the clinics, watching them do the spider walks up the walls. I've gone to see personal training. It seems more like sales. I'm not really into
Yeah.
that, right? And we'll fast forward to some stuff and where that maybe came in later. But now I was like, I want to try strength and conditioning. So I go kind of shadow some strength coaches in the Richmond area
Okay.
during that summer between sophomore and junior year. I'm like, yes, this is 100% what I want to do. I get in the best shape of my life again after being at a pretty low point. And then from there, got a chance to really just explore it. I got an internship at the school because the school didn't have enough strength coaches. So they're
Hmm.
like, yeah, kid, come on. Well, you start Monday with the teams. And just
Oh,
shadowed,
wow.
built it. Yeah, I mean, we had two for, I think, I want to say like 12 or 14 teams, something like that. So
Okay.
just not enough underfunded D1 school, right? Like
Right.
goes in and wound up really loving it. Get a chance to run teams after 6 months, which is pretty rare.
Wow.
They gave me
Hmm.
cross country, and then I just built up from there. Built the trust with that strength staff. Then I went on summer internships in between there at Liberty University under Bill Gillespie
Hmm.
with the football team over
Yep.
there, and then wound up going to VCU during that summer after I graduated. And wound up, really falling in love with it, man. From there,
Hmm.
got into Miami. At Miami, I
Okay.
was made a GA after 6 months, so I
Okay.
was able to work with very high level Division I teams, and I was
Yeah.
given cheer, dance, and swim. So I got
Very diverse.
all the yeah, like no real money teams, but great experience, right?
Yeah.
Wound up leaving there, and I saw a lot of good people get let go with the DD1 politics,
Okay.
and saw kind of the stress that came into that. Bumped
Yeah.
into Tom Palumbo, who is working
Hmm.
with a specific group right now, and Tom pulls me aside and he says, "Kid, I wish I had gone to the tactical setting, God, 20 years ago when I first started." He's been to Ohio State, he's been to Georgia, he's been to
Hmm.
Pittsburgh, and he says, "I've never," and always you're looking for new jobs as strength coaches for maybe people in your
Yeah.
audience who don't know. He says, "I've never looked for a new job the past 10 years, like
Yeah.
haven't done it," right? And he goes to work, loves what he does, gets great results with his population that he's working with now, and
Excellent.
is the reason I decided to pursue that route. So coached at a local high school for a little bit, just in the meantime, while trying to get my name in the field. Then got a job offer from Exos up in Detroit,
Hmm.
Michigan. So I moved all the way from Miami back to Richmond, Virginia, up to Detroit. So we saw the entirety of the East Coast and
Yeah.
Midwest. Really liked my job there. I got a chance to work with NFL, combine prep, firefighters, general
Hmm.
population. It was just a really good hodgepodge role. From there, got a chance to get promoted and kind of be a team lead that oversaw some heavy training in our new facility they were building. Unfortunately, COVID happened, and right as
Yeah.
COVID happened, I lucked out and got on the contract that I am now,
Okay.
and been working on the tactical side ever since. It's truly been a blessing. It's just been absolutely incredible for me, and now I'm got promoted again, and well, we're all over the place now, so it's been a lot of
Yep.
fun.
That's great. And
Mm-hmm.
so, what I want to hone in on one of the things that you mentioned. So, you talked about your injuries, right? So, you talked about lower back, working through
Mm-hmm.
that, especially during your high school basketball, and that's something that I know we see in our tactical populations. Definitely
Mm-hmm.
like lower back, shoulder, knee, and neck injuries. Particularly with yourself, you and I have kind of discussed
Mm-hmm.
this, privately. Is with your population, you see a lot of lower back and neck
Mm-hmm.
injuries. Talked about how you use, your skills as a strength and conditioning coach and your program to kind of
Mm-hmm.
help with that, with both from a kind of a rehab and a prehab standpoint.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so from a rehab standpoint, for the most part, I will include my ATs on developing warm-ups.
Hmm.
So for the medical population who doesn't know, that's going to be your athletic trainers. They really specialize a lot of the prehab and rehab and kind of
Hmm.
acute injury treatments with our guys right now. And from there, we want to go through and really have them sit down. Hey, what's this phase going to look like? What are we going to actually accomplish here?
Hmm.
What are you seeing trends on your end, and how can we reverse that? But from the warm up standpoint, we don't get too far from the basics, right? We'll
Hmm.
go look at neck and low back stability. We'll look at core stability. We'll look at shoulder, hip, and ankle mobility specifically as well. We'll do some
Okay.
glute activation, and we'll also do some posterior training in the upper back as well before they get into their main working sets that day. So we don't stay too far from it. We give them a lot of variation, but we
Hmm.
really hone in on those. For my people that are coming off some sort of activity where the low back is going to be strained, we're going to do something as simple as just hanging from a bar for 30 seconds to a minute.
Really?
Yeah, you'd be surprised, man. It gives you that temporary relief. It puts a little bit of millimeters of distance in between the vertebrae and lets the disc relax a little bit. So that's been a game changer for us. And it's just so small, so easy. It loosens up the lat, gets the grip strength there if they really want to, and just preps them right before the set. Or if we do something like a heavy squat, that day or a heavy deadlift, we'll go in and just hang from a bar directly after that before they get into their accessory work that day. And for my individual, and for my individuals who really are struggling, we'll add in the McGill Big Three before the workout, during the workout, and after the workout as well.
Can you explain what the McGill Big Three are?
Yeah, so the McGill Big Three, you're looking at the McGill Crunch, the McGill Side Plank, and the Bird Dog. I'm sure. We can plug in a ton of different variations, or maybe even show a video in this podcast as well to give your audience an idea, just because I can't do it right here in my apartment.
Yeah, but, I wouldn't ask you to.
But they will put their hands underneath their low back, do a nice crunch where their shoulders will come slightly off the floor, and they're going to engage. We call it the six-pack muscle. It's the rectus abdominis as hard as they can. Then they're going to hold that from anywhere from, we'll have them hold it for 10 seconds and then switch legs. Well, one leg's in, one leg's out. Each side, go through 3 times. We'll do side planks, either just 30 seconds straight or do 3 sets of 10 seconds alternating through just to keep them moving, because sometimes our guys like to stay in one spot doing the same thing for too long. And then the bird dogs, we either have them move through it very slowly with a fully clenched fist and pushing their leg back to the wall behind them. Those are just 2 common cues. I say, I say, punch the guy in front of you, kick the door closed at the same time. And they'll touch their elbow underneath their kneecap, right under their midline of their belly button. But it's done under control and moved very slow for them. So they get that core stability, a little bit of spinal decompression. And then 2 other methods we use are the inversion table, which is done in the athletic trainer's office right now. And then the glute ham inversion. We will literally just have them get on a glute ham as if they're going to do a back extension. And I'll just say, all right, let your hands relax to the floor. Try to get your head as close as you can to the floor and just watch their low back just sink slowly down. It's very minimal, but that's how you know they're at. They're actually decompressing their spine. And that's about the primary methods we use right now to help with the low back injuries specifically. Okay, excellent. What about some of the neck injuries that you see? Neck injuries, I mean, you're looking at all sides of the neck, man. It could be from the back of the neck directly over the spine, all the way down into your thoracic region, all the way to something going on with the trap on the outside of one of the shoulders leading up and in. So I don't do too much with that outside of any sort of foam rolling or lacrosse ball, or maybe we get the Theragun and just gun it on them real quick, right? Nothing crazy, nothing wild. But the biggest thing you can do is address T-spine mobility to help out with some of those issues as well. And then have them dig the lacrosse ball into the upper back. For neck work specifically, we do a lot of preparation for that, for what they are going through. They will tuck their chin in, and we even have different series that we can go through. So one of the series that I start with for every single person is the supine neck series. And all it is, very simply put, is they're laying on their back, feet are close to their butt, knees are pointed to the sky. They're going to engage their belly button down to the floor. Then they're going to actually take their chin up off the floor, poke it to the ceiling, and then retract back down without having the back of their head touch the floor. They'll do that for either reps or time. That's part 1. There's 4 parts here, so bear with me. Oh, wow. And then they'll go through and they will do chin forward. They'll tuck the chin down. They'll bring it back to the same position they started in and retuck. So now you're getting that deep flexion. The neck. The last 2 we'll do is they will elevate their back of their skull up off the floor. They'll tuck so it's not touching. They will go right ear, right shoulder, pause in the middle, left ear, left shoulder. So they get that lateral flexion, and then from there they will do the actual tuck. You're going to check right, pause in the middle, tuck, check left. Right. So those are very simple things that we can do, and there's multiple series. That's just an example. We could really dive into the weeds. Then as they get better at that, I'll progress them through some weighted variations, whether they'll have a plate on the side of their head and do reps or time under good, slow movements under control, and then eventually, if the long term, my previous place we were at had a weighted neck machine like you see in the NFL or collegiate football weight rooms. And, there's a bunch of tempos that we can do for those. And that ideally is where I want to get everyone, but you have to expose them to a lower regression first, because most of them can't even do the 30 seconds when they first start. Right. And it's I like the fact that you're talking about working the different areas of the neck with that first series.
Because that's a similar issue that young doctors will see, especially as they start getting into surgery and such, where you're on your feet for anywhere from 8 to 13 hours a day. So we'll talk that portion in a second. But how do you work on the operating table? You're looking down.
Yeah.
So a progression like that could very well be used by our young doctors, right, to help optimize their performance, or even just help prolong their performance a little bit and release some stress as well. So do you have any recommendations on resources that our young audience can look at to kind of get more information based on similar to that next series that you just mentioned? I know I'm throwing a curveball on this one.
No, you're good. I don't know any books off the top of my head, but I could easily attach several different articles, whether it's research-based articles or just general programming articles like you'd see on like Elite FTS or Team Builder or God knows what platform, right? So, but those would definitely be good resources for them to start. I would also recommend they also do a ton of pulling to help up with their posture as well.
Okay. Yeah, we'll talk that in a second. But so what we'll do for those who are listening, we'll find those resources and we'll post them here with the podcast. So you'll be able to have links to those to dive in further if you want to bring in that type of exercise and stretching to help alleviate your pain, especially in those long hours in the OR and ER. So let's talk about that posture portion that you were mentioning, because that's the second component, right? So dive into that a little bit. What are your thoughts and some of your methodologies on that?
Well, one thing I use with my current population right now is we don't really get away from single arm or single leg. We call it unilateral training for the doctors that don't know. That's going to be primarily what we do for a lot of upper body work. If we're looking to just get them settled and get them going, we'll teach them how to do a basic dumbbell row. We got one knee on the bench, one hand on the bench, good flat back, pull the back to the back pocket,
proper
really
form.
Engaging that proper form. Exactly. But then from there, as we get more advanced, let's say we want to add some size. We could do a chest supported dumbbell row, but I call it a single double. So it's just nothing but time under tension and volume at an appropriate weight. So they'll literally do row with the right, row with the left, row both at once, and that's one rep. And we'll go up anywhere from 8 to 12 reps with that. And by the end of it, you just see guys who just smoked afterwards. But that's going to fix up a lot of your posture as far as the rowing portion goes. If you're going to look at the other portions, you want to really work the rotator cuff, because as you said, it's when your head is looking down, so where your shoulders and the rest of the body follows. So a lot of cable external rotations, whether it's high rotation, such as a Cuban with a band or a cable, or even a small weight like a 2-pound dumbbell, or going out externally low. Each of those angles is going to be critical for them. And then training a lot of the trapezius muscles, specifically the middle and low trapezius, because so much of the time, if we do like barbell shrugs, or even if we're just sitting here like this, you see that these muscles are just going to be overactive and those low traps aren't even going to be activated properly. So what they can do is do low banded rows, and really row that low. They could do dumbbell Ys. Those are one of my favorites for the low traps, but they do them under control. So I'll literally have them lay on a bench. They'll retract their shoulders back. They'll hit 2 reps, right? And then they'll actually protract their shoulders forward, pull back, and then hit another 2 reps. So we find that if we break it up every 2 reps, they really light up those low traps properly. Whereas a lot of people just squeeze their shoulders back and down and crank out 12 to 20 reps. And they wonder why their posture never got fixed in the first place, right? So that activation is crucial. And there's a million other exercises we go to, but those are my main go-tos for the upper back.
That's good. Yeah, it was similar with us, with my population, right? So what we utilize is I love the Eyes Wise tees. Support it. I know we're talking about a lot of great topics today, but let's take a quick break to discuss our amazing sponsor, Delta G Ketones. Delta G Ketones delivers all the energy you need without the crash. It's perfect for long shifts, intensive workouts, or any time that you might need a mental or physical boost. Head over to deltagketones.com and use the code WCW20 at checkout for 20% off your order. That website again is Delta G Ketones, DeltaGketones.com. And now back to the show. So for those who are listening, and what we're talking about are what I use is rehab techniques for, especially when it comes to the 4 rotator cuff muscles. And so when we talk about the Eyes, Ys, and Ts, you're laying prone on the you're laying prone supported. And what you're doing is you're taking very light weights. We're talking about anywhere between 3 and 5 pounds in each hand. And you're doing an I, Y, and then a T with your arms. And you're really contracting, you're ensuring that the scapular is locked in, and you're activating the supraspinatus and the infraspinatus with that. And that's another way to really help with posture and with when you have an overactive anterior upper body muscles. So what we'll do is we'll also provide some other routines, simple routines that Kosta and I have mentioned in here as well. And these are easy. These are honestly 5-10 minute routines that you can do in the morning or at lunch to really kind of help with optimization of your performance just on a regular work day. I do it after working on the floor for 3 hours, and I go and sit for 3 more hours. Lunch, I get up and I do gluteal activation work. And I just use mini bands, very similar to what Kosta mentioned before. He mentioned the bird dog. That's very, besides working core and lower back activation and stability, it's really good for gluteal activation as well. Monster walks. And the reason we do that is because there's a thing called gluteal amnesia. And with us and sitting in a chair in an office all day, that'll do it. Or if you sit down for a long period of time and then you get up and go walk around, the gluteal muscles don't activate as easily as they should. And so that's one of the reasons to kind of help with reducing fatigue throughout the day too.
Oh yeah. And honestly, what I've found too is if you even do a lot of single leg work, single leg RDLs, single leg leg curls, you do single leg step ups, you lateral step ups, lunges, lateral lunges, and a ton of progression series. We can give them from there, but you really have to train at full range of motion to get those glutes activated. Right. I mean, I love a lot of the stuff we see in the field about microdosing sometimes with like athletes in season, but sometimes they're only going partials. And in this setting, whether it's with doctors or with tactical athletes, you need to go that full range of motion.
And I think you hit right on it. Is so when a lot of people hear strength coaches, they think bigger, faster, stronger. And a lot of times, especially in the performance setting, that is the case. But right now we're kind of talking more of the wellness setting. And so it's a completely different approach. And so working range of motion is one of the number one aspects that a strength coach really looks at. And any type of program, strength and conditioning program that's wellness oriented needs to start working in is that mobility and that range of motion.
Yeah, 100%.
So if you were to give a piece of advice to a new set of young, and we're not talking residents yet, but senior medical students, if they had to focus on one or two things coming out of being in school for 8 years, what would you say as a strength coach?
Full range of motion, like we talked about, first and foremost, load the weight slow. I understand a lot of people want to throw weight on the bar, like, oh, today's too easy. Great. It's too easy. Fantastic. Add 5 to 10 pounds next week, especially if you don't have a coach watching you or someone who's tracking your maxes to give you the proper percentages or RPE or whatever you're going to do. I would then say, focus on total body. You're still going to be stressed out day to day as a med ed student. If you're going to go total body, that means, hey, we're doing an upper push and a lower pull, right? We're going to do a bench press and a leg curl, right? So those kind of movement patterns are what you're going to want to target and look at. Because at the end of the day, if you want to go, let's say, do your quote unquote like bro splits, right? You got your chest and tris, you got your legs the next day, you got your abs and arms, whatever it may be. You will see real quick, you'll probably burn out. You're not going to get the results you're really looking for. And on top of that, you're going to find difficulty in your schedule. So 2 to 3 days a week is going to be another factor, right? We talk about frequency sometimes. 2 to 3 days a week is more than enough for a medical student who is about to go into their residency to train. You don't need to be working more than that. I guarantee you, between the lack of sleep, high caffeine intake levels that they're experiencing, and just overall stress, You're going to just want to train that, and that way you can at least be consistent. Consistency is going to be your best option at the end of the day. I tell our guys that now. Look, if you can't get in, 5 days this week, cool. Here's a 3-day plan of this week, and here's a 2-day version of it, so that we can account for that stress that is quote unquote uncontrollable sometimes from an athlete's point of view. Same thing for doctors. Same thing for mom and dad at home, the general population. Same thing for someone who is just older and in their senior years and wants to just keep moving. It's the same principles, just applied slightly differently.
Sounds good. So now let's take it a step further. Now you've got that, these residents, right, who are still, they're used to the long hours of med school. Now it's much longer, upwards to the 36-hour calls, doing all the grunt work. What's some of the advice you'd give them? Because let's think about it. I think it would be very similar to some of your guys in the tactical population too, in that paradigm. What would you suggest?
Prioritize sleep first and foremost, if you can and where applicable, because if your body is not well slept, you will see just your overall health drive down, and it's going to be an awful, awful fast decrease. So the other piece that I'll say is, a lot of people say nutrition, that's very important. I'm all for it, but we got to get that sleep first as the base of that pyramid. When we don't have that, the whole pyramid comes collapsing down. Then let's focus on diet. Let's get our proper protein intake, good carbohydrates, right? Proper healthy fats, not necessarily eating fast food at McDonald's. Let's get maybe some avocado as a good fat example, right? Or some omega-3s of some sorts from fish. Then I would focus on working out. But with the residency, and we have those long 36-hour calls sometimes, doing a quick HIIT workout, whether that's an on-the-minute work, like we have 4 exercises, you go through 4 rounds, but you don't rotate exercises till the minute's over, and your goal is to beat the reps, volume, and intensity assigned within that minute for that specific exercise. That's a really good one. For a great example, even today, I did 20 minutes. I did on the minute, I did 4 different exercises, and I went through 5 rounds of them. 20 minutes, done, nice and easy. Just had a really hectic day today. And sometimes you're going to have to do that. So those are the 3 biggest key points for them. But if you don't focus on sleep, when and where you can get it, you will pay down the road for it.
Definitely. So I love that you talk sleep. So let's talk the triad of sleep. The big 3 that mess up sleep. And you touched on one of them before. You said big caffeine, which agreed. And even with us, I went through probably about 6 cups of coffee today. Today was a long day.
Trust me, in grad school, I was a bang energy guy, unfortunately. but when you're working 80 hours a week and you have grad school on top of that work, it adds up. So sometimes I wouldn't recommend it, but if you can, grab a cup of coffee, grab an energy drink if you really need, but try to stay away from them if you can. Don't be like us.
And so when we talk about the 3 evils of sleep, we're talking, I got balloons flowing here. Nice. We're talking about nicotine, alcohol, and caffeine. Those are the big 3. And that's what we typically see in our tactical populations. Not necessarily so much probably with the medical field, at least on the nicotine side, hopefully, because we all know the downsides of that. So you can't just get rid of it. So how do you modulate those 3 with your population? And maybe that could give some insight to what, some advice we can give to our young medical professionals.
Be honest with them, be straightforward, but don't try to change them. This behavior has to be changed involuntarily, right? Voluntarily from them. So sorry, I got my mixed up right there, but voluntarily from them. I would say for a med student specifically, if you really feel the need, just maybe could blow off some steam, man. Hey, we're going to head to the pub. We're going to head to the bar. We're head to the club, whatever it is. Take your night to do that, because I do think there is a mental health component of that where you do need to blow off some steam and be with your other residents, whoever it may be, and just chill out for a second. Now, obviously, if we can avoid that, that's obviously the best case scenario. But I'll be honest, if I was in med school, I'd probably drink a little bit too. Right. So it's one of those ones where you need to just accept that that's going to be part of the population. Nextly, let's address caffeine. Caffeine, I'd say, 1 to 2 cups of coffee is good. If you can space them anywhere from 4 to 6 hours apart, right? Because that's roughly the half-life of the caffeine right there. You'll be in a much better situation. Try not to be over-reliant on it. And if you go before bedtime, right, try not to avoid anything past, I would say, like 2 p.m. So if you have a normal work day of, let's say, 8 to 5, right, I try not to drink caffeine past 1:30, 2 p.m. if possible, because by the time I get home and get to bed, that caffeine is now finally wearing off at 8:30, 9 p.m. at night, right? So you want to make sure that you're falling within those time ranges. So if you do need it, fantastic. I would recommend not loading it up with a bunch of sugar and crap from Starbucks. So that's another big
Probably
thing.
much cheaper too.
Probably much cheaper, like a normal cafe, whether no matter where you're at in the world, the world looks at Starbucks and they're just like, oh man, like how do you guys add so much crap to your coffee? I'm like, hey man, look, it is what it is. So but a simple, even like espresso shot is more than enough to get the job done if you're going to use it. And then I'll say, as far as nicotine goes, well, be better. I'm sorry, just be better. It's that simple. I don't think we don't need to address that one too much, but obviously if you're going to use, I will say this, if you are going to use nicotine and you are hell-bent on doing so, get a pouch or some Zen pouches, whatever it be. Anything where you are inhaling smoke is going to be terrible. Inhaling any kind of those little vapes or e-cigarettes that are super big now with all the younger people. I can't believe I'm 30 years old and saying that, but it's a real thing. I see 14, 15-year-olds vaping, and it breaks my heart. I'll say another one is avoid cigarettes, avoid anything with heavy amounts of nicotine in it that are going to keep you up late at night too and give you quote unquote energy. It's fake energy, but stay away from it nonetheless. So those would be the big 3 pieces of advice I would give, as long-winded as some of them were. Yeah.
And you kind of piggyback off that. I heard saying a few weeks ago, someone mentioned a 6-3-2-1 paradigm when it comes to sleep. Yeah, it's really interesting. So 6 hour, it's hours based. So 6-3-2-1. So of course we talked the big three evil, but there's other stuff like lights, screen time, little things like that. And even eating, like we're talking about glucose stability. So like 6 hours, like you just said, caffeine, no more 6 hours before bed. 3 hours. I forget that one. 2 is eating. And then 1 is no screen time, right? Or really limit, 1 hour. And so there's different versions of it out there as well. So just like little rules of thumb like that could really help improve your quality of sleep. And we're not even talking about, okay, you need to be having 7, 8, 9 hours a day. Okay, if you only have 4, how can you maximize those 4 hours?
Exactly.
Right.
And you maximize that as best you can. Honestly, just trying to decompress yourself before you sleep is going to give you the best quality of sleep you can get. And then avoiding a lot of those 6-3-2-1 scenarios that you just mentioned. It's going to be very difficult. I think one of the things that I'm guilty of from time to time is when running a side business, I got clients all over the world. Sometimes I am up a little early and I'm going to bed a little bit later outside my normal work hours to work on this and build this up over time. But I will be on my phone. I'll be on a computer. I'll be programming for clients in jiu-jitsu or firefighters or even just normal gym pop people like you and me, right? So it'll be, I guess the best way to say is just contain it as best you can. Plan out your day ahead of time. If you look at the notes app on my phone, I have to do Monday, to do Tuesday, all the way down, and then say to do on the weekend, and then just plot that out. And try to assign a time to it, right? If you put it on a calendar and a schedule, you're more likely to do it at said time because you also get a reminder and you won't forget. I mean, all of the guys you work with know that. All the guys I work with know that. But we live and die by our schedules. And I think if you can take those tactics, if you will, and put them into your medical residency students or senior med students or even the first-year doctors, right? Put it on the calendar. Lock it in. Don't let it fluctuate.
Yeah. Man, this is great. I mean, I know we started off with strength and conditioning. Now we're talking about time management. It's
a big thing.
It is, and it's we're hitting the whole paradigm here. This is great. And then for those out there, this is how all of our conversations tend to go when we talk. We trade ideas week in, week out. He's literally down the road from me, even though that's another country away, but Kosta, we work closely together with our populations. So kind of like recapping, right? So we've talked about, definitely your background, which is very vibrant and extraordinary. It's great. Talked about some basic strength and, basically just resistance training items and flexibility items for our young doctors. We talked about how, you can open up the posture a little bit with posterior chain type of work and core activation. Talked about neck issues, how we can work on range of motion with that. You talked about some of your big advice for our senior medical students and for our young residents. That I think that was very powerful. Then that would listen to sleep and everything else. Before we start winding down, do you have any other pieces of advice that you would like to impart to our audience?
Get good at soft skills as a doctor. I think a lot of the time, well, let's dive into this, man, because I really want to talk about this, whether it's with coaches or people who are directors or VPs at companies, all the way down to if you're working in a tactical population. Leadership matters at the end of the day. And building trust, whether it's with your subordinates or your superiors, matters. So at the end of the day, you should be socially aware of who's in charge by, let's say, rank in our case, right? Or we could say by title in the civilian world, right? That would be another great way to go about that. I think that sometimes everyone's a little bit different. So sometimes having the right team in place and the right hiring processes in place are going to be crucial. And as doctors, when you're dealing with patients, you are seeing them at a rough time in their life. If we have a guy come in, whether it's you or me, and the guy's hurt, we are seeing them at a lower point than usual. We should proceed by asking them how they're doing today. How can we help? What can we build on from there? Hey, by the way, if they have a wife, how are the wife and kids doing? Those are small social cues that will build you a lot of reputation along the way. Know what your client is really trying to say sometimes, and really go through the checklist with them, and then follow up with them. Show them that you care. You'll be surprised what a simple follow-up will do to your reputation if you do it correctly. We had a guy here who was really struggling with some personal stuff going on. Wasn't even about the weight room anymore. Text him, hey, dude, chop it up with me. What's going on? Let's talk. What's up? And he just talked to me over the phone for 30 minutes, and that was that. And sometimes that's all they need. So I would say go with your soft skills, especially if you're looking to get promoted and then lead a team. You can't lead a team with the dictator mentality. You see how that's working in Russia and North Korea, right? So not working too well. So I would say get your soft skills good. Learn how to communicate effectively, properly, and timely. If you go on long-winded rants sometimes with a client, it may not work well. We're not going to sit here and explain all the biomechanical advantage of a sled push. We don't have the time to do that, right?
Well, we could.
We could, right? But it's one of those things. Does that person really care?
Exactly.
Right? No, they don't. So, okay, dude, hey, we're going to load the sled up with 45-pound plates on it, and we're going to push it as hard as we can for 10 seconds on, and we're going to do 50 seconds off, and that's going to be some of your heavier conditioning for the day. Why am I doing this? Well, it'll keep your legs strong, get your heart rate up to a zone where you're going to develop a conditioning base. Fantastic. That's it. Super simple, easy put. So if med students can find a way to find out what their guys are saying and then actually bridge the gap between the deep medical knowledge to their understanding, they're going to be way better off.
Powerful. That's perfect. Let's just stick a fork in it because that's done. That's perfect.
Awesome, man.
So last thing. So you mentioned you wrote a book. So tell us a little bit about the book and where we can find it.
Yeah, so I published it on Team Builder. They're a strength and conditioning software that a lot of strength coaches use to deliver their programs, a virtual app, if you will. So they can find it on their website, and I'll post a link for it with you and your staff right now for the podcast. Basically, the book encompasses a very famous methodology called triphasic. It's made by a coach in Minnesota whose name is Cal Dietz. He's a legendary strength and conditioning coach. And it's also worked with Dr. Peterson, who has done a fantastic job of blending the science with a professional coach to create elite outcomes, if you will. The premise of that can be modified at multiple levels. That's what's so great about the triphasic methodology. So what I did is I took it and I modified and refined it again and again and again to something that it works and can be modified at all different levels, whether someone who is post-operation, we need to get them better. I gave examples on that. Another tenure we talked about was the novice, the intermediate, and then the actual advanced athletes that you see. And then within each of those tenures, you will have the actual triphasic component, which is 2 to 4 weeks of eccentrics, so slow descending of the movements, 2 to 4 weeks of isometrics, where we're going to hold it at the point in the range of motion with the most tension, and then 2 to 4 weeks of dynamic work or concentric work is how we describe it. So you'll go up and down and you'll have a lot of heavy loading, but it'll clean up a lot of your form. And on top of that, I show you 3 different ways in each of those triphasic methodologies in each tenure of how you could solve that problem. So it gives you multiple avenues. So for your doctors, it would be great to just even start off with that eccentric phase and build up the aerobic base that's paired with it as an example. But I made it because coaches need it, because I struggled when I came into the tactical setting. And then I found if you modified it this way, it's applicable not only with tactical, but at scale. And at the end of the day, doctors, lawyers, engineers, whoever can benefit from it. And that's the goal. And that's the rationale behind the book, to give a framework for people.
Perfect. All right. Yeah. So like you said, we will post a link to that at the bottom, or excuse me, at the end of this podcast. It's a great book, easy read. It's an ebook, PDF found through TeamBuilder, with another great platform. And just your ACL example in there was a very powerful example on how to use the triphasic approach. I really like that. And then appreciate finally, it. It was a great book. And you also helped write, co-author Chapter 10 in the Human Weapon System, where you talk a little bit more about your methodology and such too. So if you want to get more of a deep dive into Kosta's brain and how he thinks, pick up those 2 books. First, pick up the triphasic book, and then, get the HWS, the Human Weapon System book. And let's just say he's got some more content coming out here in the near future on advanced strength and conditioning principles. So when that comes out, we'll plug him on there as well and talk about that a little more in depth, how you can apply that universally too.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So great. This has been fun. So if anyone has any questions, is there a way for them to get in contact with you?
Yeah. So they can shoot me an Instagram direct message. My handle is @coach_Telegadas. I'll attach them there for your viewers. And then if they want to reach out to me via email, I have my personal coaching email and business email that we'll put in. It's just coachkostatelegadas@gmail.com. And if they're interested in outsourcing their training to me or working around their busy schedule, more than happy to help them out with that. We can hop on a call and help solve those problems for them.
Perfect. I love it. So, it's been great talking to you. It always is great talking to you, man.
Appreciate it.
I always learn something new, and I hope our audience, I know they definitely learned something as well, and I just hope they enjoyed it. So, everyone, thanks very much for listening to the WCW, and until next time, have a great day.
Next time. Cheers, man.
The views expressed by myself and the guests of this podcast do not reflect the official policy or position of the U.S. Air Force, Department of Defense, or the U.S. government.